Welcome, ladies. Glad to see everybody. Feels like it's been a while since I've done this, since I've been around for it. But I thought it would be great if we got together. There's that TikTok trend. I don't know if y'all saw it. Things I won't do now because, whether it's like because of your job or as a parent or whatever. So I thought we're a little late to the game, but whatever. But I thought it would be neat for us to kind of talk about a great way, an opportunity for us to talk about what we've learned and now how, whether it's going in the past, how we'd change our behavior, what we tell people moving forward. But I thought it'd be kind of a nice opportunity for us to share. So it was my topic suggestion. So I guess I'll get us started. Things I won't do now because of the things that I've learned advocating for my kids over the billion years. I will not have a verbal conversation with someone over the phone, in person, whatever, without following it up with something in writing. And you guys have been around long enough to hear me say over and over again, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. But like for me, that's the big thing. You have a conversation with the teacher who says, "Oh, okay, yeah, well, I'll let the principal know. We'll schedule that meeting." They're busy. If you're just catching them at drop off or pick up or in the hallway or worse at Target, don't bother your teachers at Target. They'll forget. They're busy gals. So I think a lot of people really appreciate that email follow-up of, "Hey, it was nice to bump into you today. I'll look forward to that meeting invite." You said that you would set up a meeting with me and you and Principal Jones to talk about insert issue here. And I do that now with any person in authority. You don't necessarily have to do it maybe at a doctor's office, but I would recommend looking at the after visit summary. And if there's something that you talked about or they said they would do or something is incorrect, by all means, follow up. But I will not have a verbal conversation with someone in authority of my children, especially if it's to report an issue, to ask for services, to touch base on, whatever, without following it up in writing. Two ladies.
Where were you last year? Because, now I do the same thing because my daughter was supposed to be enrolled in OVR, and I just sat there and I waited for some contact, and it never came. Well, they did not follow through, and I didn't know. So that's a smart thing to not do anymore.
I think it's because we all learn by accidentally and usually poorly. We usually learn because, like, darn, I wish I would have followed up, or I wish I would have written that down. So I know I learned that the hard way. That was hard-earned knowledge.
Yeah, that should be added to the learning styles. How do you learn? Visually, with writing.
Accidentally.
Poorly. Yes, poorly. Accidentally. Right.
I do feel like this kind of goes in the line with this, Christina, but I think that, and I don't necessarily know if this is the right way to say it, but just trusting the school. Early on, in my gut, I knew that my daughter was struggling. And she had in-home services, and I, made mention at the school, like she was struggling with the reading. And they just kept telling me, we're going to get her on track. We're going to get her there. And I waited and I waited. And I feel like from what I've learned, I shouldn't have waited. I should have trusted my gut, and said, no, she needs an evaluation. But I didn't know, and here we are in our senior year. And I still believe that, like you said, you don't have any kind of conversation without following up in writing and holding them accountable, and pushing forward with what you want to see for your child.
Absolutely.
Another big thing, kind of like to add to that, I
You
like
taking
that.
notes?
Taking
Jill
notes,
comes to
writing down.
harvest ideas.
Oh,
Yeah.
We love that.
Yes. Well,
I
you know
have
what?
no.
Because yeah, when you would say things, I'd be like, oh yeah. I follow up with in writing, and I make copies of
Oh, yeah.
everything that I give to the school, because they'll swear to you that they did not have this from the doctor, they did not have this diagnosis, they didn't have this, and I'm like, but I gave it to you. And so I've had to learn, and I put a note on the top of it, gave it to principal, whoever, the
Yeah.
date and the time of the meeting. So that when it comes down to it, they'll say I don't have it. And I'm like, oh, well, that's funny, because right there, I gave it to. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like follows up with like paperwork, put up with a written response, and like keep
Love
copies of
that.
everything.
Love that.
Yeah. And I was actually gonna piggyback off of Tracy as well. And one of my things that I will not do anymore is I won't wait to get
Yeah,
my kids
yeah.
help. You know, like you sit and you're watching them struggle a little bit and you're like, oh, it's just a thing, it's just a girl thing, it's just a teenage thing, it's just a this thing, and then all of a sudden it's a huge thing, and you now are scrambling to get appointments and things. It's hard to get, and I have a chance to start all over again because we've recently adopted a 4-year-old. So she said to me, she actually has had PCIT therapy because I'm not waiting. And we drove by the therapist this morning, and she says to me, is that the place where I go to tell people if I need to talk to them? And I'm like, yes, that's where you need to go. And I'm like, do you need to go? Do you need to talk to them? And she's like, maybe. I'm like, well, I'll get right on the phone and
Love
get you an
that.
appointment.
Love that.
I'm not waiting. No.
Yeah, that's something that I waited. Like my husband always made fun of me because I would say, "Oh, it's just a stage." Oh, boys, we all, everybody, oh, that's just a boy. It's just a stage they're going through. Well, because that's what we were told. Growing up, we came from a generation where they didn't diagnose people. They didn't do therapies.
Right.
You were just a bad kid, and it was just a stage. So when my older kids were younger, it was, oh, it's just a stage. And my husband was like, oh, my Lord, how many stages do these people go through?
Exactly.
And so now I'm like you, Julia. I have groups of children, and so my 10 and my 7-year-old, they from the beginning, early intervention, and we've just went. And now I have grandchildren, and it's funny because my grandson gets early intervention, and I went right to his dad and was like, listen, whatever he needs, it's never going to hurt. So if you see something, anything, and we know as parents, we sit and them. And especially when you have other children, I have all these kids, and I said, it's just not going to hurt. Like if he gets these things, it doesn't hurt him. It's only going to better things. So, and I think it's that whole that stigma of having, having a diagnosis, having the therapy, going to see somebody. Oh, not my kid. Well, guess what? My kid will get whatever they need. And my grandchildren, same thing. I will advocate all day long, because when they get to school and they start, all these things start catching up with them, what's worse? Somebody saying, oh my goodness, that kid goes to therapy, or oh my goodness, now that kid's really struggling in school.
Right.
And then the other kids,
Absolutely.
and it brings on all these other things. So I'm
Well,
big about
jumping
that.
off that,
Anything
the other
they need.
thing that I won't not do now as double negative, I don't know how that works. It kind of jumping off the stigma idea is I won't hesitate to talk to the people I love about suicide. I know that the very first time that I heard sitting waiting for my child at their weekly therapy appointment, and the therapist came out and said, come in here in this room, and your child said that they're considering suicide, and it floored me. I had not seen any signs. We'd been going to therapy for a long time, and I know in the past things that I have heard it are the urban legends or the advice that you hear from other people about don't talk about suicide because you'll put that idea in their head, and that is absolutely the furthest thing from the truth. you're not, it's not, think about it. If I have a random conversation with any of you and talk about suicide, it's not like you're going to walk away and go, yeah, maybe, right? What they have found is
So,
that
yeah.
people are actually happier. They feel better that you brought it up. And especially for our children who are relying on us, it shows them that we are strong enough to have that conversation. And so I think we have a great tip sheet, and something really interesting happened at the secondary transition conference. Was that last week? It feels like forever ago. When we were there, Julia, Tracy, you guys were there, learning all the secondary transition things, and Peyton and I were staffing our table, and we had a number of tip sheets out, and they're bright and colorful, and people would come over to the table and they'd get excited, like, oh, resources, and they'd kind of put their hand out and they'd grab the emotional safety planning tip sheet, and then what's the other one we have? The how to help your child if they're being bullied tip sheet. And then they'd kind of look at our how to talk to your child if they come out to you tip sheet, and some of them would kind of like pause for a minute, but that one was well received. And Peyton and I both noticed they'd get to the next tip sheet kind of in the cluster, and they at that point we're used to picking up tip sheets, and they would actually pull their hand back. It was the how to talk to your child about suicide tip sheet. And they actually, Peyton and I kind of after maybe we noticed a few people doing it, looked at each other when they walked away, and we were like, did you notice that people are actually physically recoiling away from this tip sheet? And it's sad. I understand the sentiment. I don't want to bring that negativity into my life, and I get it, but I think it's important to, at least somewhere in the back of your mind, hopefully it's just one of those things that you never need to use, like how to bake bread on your own or grow your own yeast, that kind of stuff, right? Hopefully it's one of those things you'll never need, but at least having in the back of your mind an idea of what to do and how to approach the conversation, I think is really helpful. I think that's really helpful.
I do agree with, sorry, Julia.
Yeah, because
Something that,
go ahead, Tracy.
Go ahead,
I've
Tracy. Done with my daughter. And, when she has talked about, that topic, and something that we have discussed is that she is an advocate for others. And on a couple of occasions, she has reached out to a school personnel to let them know that another student may, be feeling suicidal. And at one point she did get some backlash from adults, and we praised her and said, you did the exact right thing you were supposed to do. You saved that person, you talked about it, and you brought it to somebody's attention. Because if you didn't do that, what was the alternative? And so I think I like to believe that our younger generation is getting that picture of that mental health is not a stigma any longer, and that we do need to talk about it more. But I do agree with you, Christina. That I will not, if somebody's talking about it, I'm not going to shy away from it. And I try with my mom and my relatives that are older, when we are talking about mental health, is if they do say something derogatory, I say, nope, we're not doing that. We're not brushing it under the rug like we used to. We're not doing that anymore.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know in our
Mhm.
family, we have a whole
Yep.
lot of mental health going on for generations. And again, it's always brushed under the rug. Nobody talks about it. Nobody. So I've had several people in my family commit suicide. That is not a bad word in this house. That is something, if you need to talk about it, we talk about it. That has touched our family many times. And what I always feel, and I always explain to my children
Yeah.
is, what would have been the outcome if the person would have had somebody to talk to?
Exactly.
Just that minute, that day, that could be a totally different
Yeah.
outcome. So if I have to talk about it to you to change that outcome, then I will. If I have to follow you down the hall and talk to you about it, then that's fine. But because it's always been such a big thing in our
Yeah.
family, like it's there, like, family reunions, it's something that's kind of like, in the background. It's like in the shadows. I really would like to think that my children, not that, and nobody feels comfortable talking about it, but it's just something that they know. If they say, "Hey, Mom, like I'm having these thoughts," or this has been brought up, or they talk about it, and we don't sit around the dinner table talking about it. Like, it's not one of those things, but it's not something that this horrible taboo is like, "Oh, you can't." So if those ideas are popping up, hopefully my children are just gonna be like, "Hey, Mom, this, like,
It is.
life is hard for these kids nowadays. And no matter what they say or do,
Yeah.
there's always somebody telling them that it's wrong to feel like that. It's wrong to act like that. It's wrong to look like that. It's wrong to think like that." These kids have it rough. So hopefully, like this conversation, like suicide, death, anything, I just experienced death in my family
Mhm.
last week. I want my kids to know this happens in life. You have these feelings, you have these situations, you have these things. You can come to me. If you can't talk
Right.
to me, I'll find you somebody. That's a whole big, that whole thing with putting that blanket over everything. No, we can't talk about that. So I feel like, you guys know me, I'm very confrontational, I'm very forward, I'm very blunt about things. And I love that. And my kids love that because they know they can walk up. I mean, sometimes they want to talk about things and you're like, "Ah," but I want them
Yeah.
to know, give me a minute. Let me but we can talk about it. Yeah, exactly. Let me breathe. But I just think that they put so much taboo on so many things. And like you said, Christina, like they'll talk about it, you'll put the idea in their head.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it's probably
Yeah.
already
Exactly.
there if we're at this
Yeah.
point.
Agreed.
And I'd rather them
And there's no,
talk it
I mean,
out
I want to be like
than
really
to act
clear.
it.
It's not like because you have one conversation, it's going to change the way things are. So you would never want to make anyone feel like, oh, you didn't say the right thing. You didn't save someone. Like it's not necessarily about that. It's doing your best and trying. And it's if someone decides to end their life, you may not have an opportunity to talk to them. What you say may not be the thing that deters them, but to know that you didn't shy away and that you broached it. And one of the things that I learned, not to like within the last couple of years, that I had no idea, the suicide prevention hotline, you can call them to ask them questions. You can call them to have a conversation with them about, this is what I'm seeing. Am I overreacting? Am I worried? Am I going to do the right thing? So I did not know that you don't have to be the person in question who is considering taking your life, ending your life. People around you, you can call for guidance and advice. And so I think that that's really important because, we do, I think sometimes as parents, kind of going back to Tracy's, like, trust your gut, right? This is a great place that you could do that gut check, where you could give them a call and say, I'm kind of, and how could I start that conversation? And they'll have that discussion with you. That I had no idea that resource was available, but the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, there's text messaging, everything. Then there's some specialty numbers like the trans hotline. The Trevor Project has a great one if you're in the LGBTQ community. So I'm sure if you were a parent and you had some questions, about your child, you could give those numbers a call. But I do know that the wait lists for support are very, very long, but those numbers can be available 24/7. If it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're turning over in bed and you can't get yourself to sleep again because you're worried about this, give them a call and they'll be able to kind of, talk to you, guide you, give you some suggestions. So I think that is a good resource to have.
Right.
And I just kind of wanted to piggyback real quick on what you said too,
Right.
Jill. Kevin Hines in the person that's in the ripple effect, as he went to the San Francisco Bridge, he was looking for anybody
Yeah.
to just
Connect.
say, how are you? Are you okay? Just recognizing, and I know this wasn't really the topic,
Right.
but I just recognize the people that are around you and see if they are in need and just say, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything?
Yep.
Yeah.
You just have to
So
mention
many
the
times
number of
people just, and I
grandkids,
get
don't
it.
you,
I
Jill?
have 6 kids, 5 grandkids, blah, blah, blah. I have all this stuff
Especially
going on.
around me.
And I have found my, yeah, I always have to bring it up. I'm sorry. Yes. So, I've caught myself the last couple years because we get so caught up in our own lives, and that's what life's about, our family and whatnot. And I'll be at the store and you see somebody and you can just tell. Like I know I wear it on my face. We all know that. And I will smile and, hi, how are you? You having a good day? Like just that little thing, because I always keep it in the back of my head because of situations I've been in my life. Sometimes somebody needs that. Or you'll see somebody, oh, girl, I love your hair. Just sometimes everybody needs that once in a while. And if if I'm that person that walks through, my kids get so mad. I walk through Walmart and I say something to almost every person I pass.
Amazing.
Because
That's amazing.
you don't know. They might about to talk. Yeah, they might be having the worst day of their life. And just that smile, just that comment, just something is the total difference. And you know what? Tomorrow might be another bad day and you might not be around. But you know what? Today, I made a difference. So I don't know. I feel like that. I don't feel like enough people stop because we're so consumed with our own lives. And I get it because I have a whole lot every day going on. But sometimes
She
just that
is.
one
You know,
little
you're
thing
a closet
can make a
nice
difference for
person,
somebody
Jill.
else.
You can come out and be a nice person.
Oh, I am. I'm like this in the closet. Like I'm peeking.
Yeah.
I really like to be nice, and I'm very friendly and outgoing. It's
Jill
just,
and I are
I have, like,
attending support
very-
groups together
my
to
little
work on
I
it.
have an uncle, and we
Thanks for pointing that out, Julia. I like that.
yes.
we
What was that,
we
Julia?
have an uncle, and he's a great guy, but he's very sarcastic, and we call him mostly nice.
There you go, Jill. We're mostly
you're
well,
mostly
I don't know.
nice,
I don't know. I'd say mostly nice for me, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can be, and I will. It's my thing is like
Yep.
everything's a fine line with me. So like I will do anything for you.
The line
until you
goes
prove
all
to
the
me
way
I
to the
can't.
extreme. Then
And then once you
there's
get on this side
gradients
of the
of
line,
nice, but then once you
Like, I-
cross that line, there's like
yeah.
you're really
Like, well,
into
that's
it.
what
You're no in the no thing.
Listen, even Chrissy will say to me, we all know I'm real good friends with Chrissy, and Chrissy will say to me, I've never seen you be mean. I hear that you're really mean, but I've never seen you. And I said, because you've never done anything. Like you've never seen me in that situation. You know what I mean? And it's not that I'm mean. I'm just, everybody knows I'm tough love. I'm yes. But like I said, I just feel like, I know there's been times in my life when I wish to God somebody would have given me 5 seconds and just said, hey, I like your hair today. Nice shoes. I mean, good. How's your day going?
Well, jumping off
So I
jumping
always
off
try
that
to
idea,
be
Jill, it's like you knew
to everybody else what I
like
wish
my
I had.
hit list there. My other
That's
one
like
is
what
I will never not make eye contact and try and like say something nice or smile or whatever at a mom who or parent who's dealing with like a meltdown or like a child who's having a day, because I know how when your kiddo is just has had enough and is melting down and acting out.
Yep.
I know how it feels to kind of, want to like sink down as small as you can. And I know how when you do take a moment and kind of look around really quick, maybe you're looking for an exit or whatever, and you catch the looks of people like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with that kid? I think just having somebody else make eye contact and be like, I get you, mom. We all have tough days. Or if I'm standing in line and somebody else is like, I will go out of my way to like verbally say something like, this hot weather is really getting to all of us, or, something like that, just so that the parent gets that somebody's on their side and isn't judging them and doesn't think that they're a bad parent. Because sometimes that social pressure just makes it even worse. And sometimes we don't feel like we can do maybe what we've been practicing by like setting those boundaries or getting down to those levels and having a conversation with them, because we feel very stigmatized by people looking at us. And so, sometimes we may react in a way because of that social pressure, and just want to make sure that parents know, like, been there, done that, I get you.
I do that all the time. I just did it the other day at the store. This kid was having a fit, and the dad was acting worse than the kid. And the mom was so embarrassed. And you guys know, you turn red, you get real hot, and you're like sweating because everybody's looking at you. And I looked at her, I was like, girl, listen, I got 6 kids. They're all you're fine. You're fine.
Right.
Nobody here has had a kid that hasn't had a meltdown, and it's so nice to hear that, because we have meltdowns. I have meltdowns. It's so nice to hear that from somebody. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I got you. You're fine. And he just did this the other day at Target. It's so nice to have somebody recognize that when you're in public, because I do. You get, that you get hot, and you're sweating, like you can't get your stuff up. You can't find
every
your credit card,
time I'm at,
Especially if you live in a small
find my
town where
card.
everybody knows you,
So-
and they're like, oh, there's that mom again with her kid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, as we wrap up, do you guys
Oh,
have
God, I
anything
gotta
you
get
want to
behind
share
Jill.
before we're done? Inspiration, tips, wisdom.
I am glad that we had this topic, because I struggle with being a I will never do that again kind of person. I'm so wishy-washy. So it's good to hear that people can do it. You can actually, set things for yourself that you're not going to do anymore. And I mean, I did want to quickly touch back on the talking about suicide thing. Having lived that, I wanted to tell Tracy to tell Bree thanks, because I was the mom getting the call from the friend that, the friends are important. So, that really, that saved my kid's life, that friend. So, thanks,
I will
Bree.
certainly let her know. I think that goes back to just also trusting our guts too, recognizing what we do know is right, and what our kids need. And you got me choked up, Julia, so it really drew me, because I but yeah, just trusting our guts and teaching our kids what to do right.
Yep.